There comes a moment in every life when something shifts. It's subtle. It's not loud. It doesn't shake the walls or split the sky. It's a whisper, a tug, a stirring in your spirit you can't explain. You try to ignore it. You try to rationalize it. You tell yourself it's just emotion, just fatigue, just a phase. But it keeps coming back. That's not coincidence. That's not anxiety. That's a holy nudge. It's the divine interruption that refuses to let you stay comfortable in a place you've already outgrown. It's the sacred discomfort that shows up when your current reality can no longer contain your future identity. You feel restless, not because you're failing, but because you're evolving. The nudge comes when you've been praying for change, but you didn't expect the answer to require movement. It comes when doors start closing, and you think you're being rejected, but heaven is redirecting you. It comes when relationships shift, opportunities dry up, and the very ground beneath your routine begins to tremble. You call it loss. God calls it transition. See, turning points rarely announce themselves with celebration. They often arrive disguised as pressure. Pressure to grow. Pressure to decide. Pressure to release what no longer serves your purpose. And pressure has a way of revealing who you really are. It squeezes out fear. It squeezes out doubt. But it also squeezes out faith. There is always a whisper before the shift, before the doors close, before the opportunity appears, before the elevation becomes visible. It starts quietly. So quietly that if you are distracted, busy, or emotionally overwhelmed, you will miss it. The whisper does not compete with noise. It waits for stillness. This holy nudge is not random emotion. It is not insecurity. It is not ambition alone. It is the subtle signal that your current season has reached its limit. You may be functioning well on the outside, but inside something feels unsettled. You accomplish goals, yet fulfillment feels distant. You smile in public, yet privately you sense there is more. That whisper is the announcement that a shift is forming. The whisper often challenges what feels safe. It questions routines you've grown comfortable with. It interrupts patterns you've mastered. It nudges you to reconsider environments that once felt like home. And the hardest part is that it doesn't come with full instructions. It gives direction, not details. It gives prompting, not a blueprint. You begin to feel a pull toward growth that requires risk. A conversation you've been avoiding keeps resurfacing in your heart. An idea you dismissed keeps returning stronger. A dream you buried under responsibility starts knocking again. That is not coincidence. That is alignment trying to get your attention. The whisper does not shout because it seeks partnership, not pressure. It invites you to lean in, to discern, to trust. It requires sensitivity. It requires courage to admit that comfort may be the very thing limiting your expansion. When you feel that gentle disturbance, that internal stirring that refuses to settle, it is a sign that you are not stuck, you are being summoned. The whisper comes before the shift so that you can prepare your heart before your circumstances change. It allows you to adjust your mindset before your reality adjusts itself. It softens you before the transition strengthens you. And if you honor the whisper, if you pause long enough to listen, you will realize that what feels like uncertainty is actually divine guidance positioning you for movement. Sacred discomfort is the tension you feel When your spirit has outgrown your surroundings, but your feet are still standing in the same place. It is the restlessness that visits you in the middle of success. It is the unease that shows up even when everything looks stable on the outside. You cannot explain it to people because by all visible standards, you are doing fine. Yet deep within, something refuses to settle. This kind of discomfort is not punishment. It is not failure. It is not a sign that you chose the wrong path. It is evidence that growth is taking place beneath the surface. Just as muscles ache when they are being strengthened, your spirit stretches when it is being prepared for more. The ache does not mean you are breaking. It means you are building. Sacred discomfort disrupts complacency. It shakes you out of autopilot living. It forces you to confront questions you have been postponing. Are you truly aligned with your purpose? Or are you just maintaining what is familiar? Are you staying because it is right or because it is safe? Growth begins the moment you become honest about the difference. The challenge is that discomfort feels inconvenient. It interrupts routines. It unsettles relationships. It exposes areas where you have been shrinking to survive instead of expanding to thrive. But discomfort is often the language of transformation. It signals that the old version of you can no longer carry the new calling forming within you. When sacred discomfort appears, many people try to silence it. They distract themselves, they overwork, they overcommit, they convince themselves that gratitude means ignoring the nudge for change. But gratitude and growth can coexist. You can appreciate where you are and still acknowledge that you are being invited higher. That uneasiness is a refining fire. It burns away illusions. It reveals hidden fears. It strengthens resilience. If you allow it to teach you, instead of terrify you, you will discover that discomfort is not your enemy. It is your evidence that you are evolving beyond limitations you once accepted as permanent. Pressure has a way of exposing what comfort conceals. When everything is calm, it is easy to appear strong. It is easy to speak confidently about faith, purpose, and vision. But when life tightens its grip, when expectations rise and uncertainty surrounds you, what is truly inside begins to surface. Pressure does not create your character, it reveals it. There are seasons when the weight feels unbearable. Deadlines close in. Responsibilities multiply. Opposition increases. You pray for relief, yet the intensity remains. In those moments, it can feel like you are being crushed. But pressure is often the very tool that shapes purpose. Diamonds are formed under strain. Oil is released through crushing. Strength is developed through resistance. Pressure forces clarity. It strips away distractions and demands decision. It pushes you to confront fears you have avoided and to define what you truly believe. When the squeezing begins, excuses lose their power. You either rise in resilience or retreat in doubt. And every time you choose to stand, even when you feel weak, something powerful is being forged within you. Purpose is rarely discovered in comfort. It is uncovered when you are stretched beyond what you thought you could handle. The struggle becomes the classroom. The obstacle becomes the teacher. The adversity becomes the mirror showing you capabilities you never recognized in easier seasons. What once intimidated you begins to strengthen you because endurance builds confidence. Pressure also refines motives. It reveals whether you are driven by applause or anchored in calling. When the crowd disappears and affirmation fades, pressure asks a simple question: will you continue? In that question lies transformation. Because when you persist without external validation, your roots grow deeper than opinions. The squeezing season may feel unfair. It may feel relentless. But it is producing discipline, focus, spiritual maturity, and unshakable conviction. It is aligning your capacity with your assignment. The very thing that feels like it is breaking you is actually building endurance that comfort could never create. And as you withstand the pressure, purpose begins to emerge with greater clarity and strength. Elevation requires separation. You cannot rise while gripping what was only meant for a previous season. Release is not loss, it is preparation. Yet letting go can feel like tearing away a part of your identity. The habits you built, the relationships you leaned on, the environment that once validated you, all of it can become familiar territory. Familiarity feels safe. Even when it quietly limits you, to rise, you must examine what you are holding onto out of fear rather than faith. Sometimes it is an outdated mindset that whispers you are not ready. Sometimes it is a circle that only supports the version of you that no longer exists. Sometimes it is a role you mastered, but were never meant to occupy forever. Growth demands honesty about what fits and what restrains. Release challenges the ego. It confronts pride. It asks you to admit that success at one level does not guarantee fulfillment at the next. You may have built something meaningful, but if the holy nudge is calling you forward, staying comfortable becomes costly. The price of clinging to the old can be the forfeiture of the new. Letting go is rarely dramatic. It is often a quiet decision made in prayer, reflection, or resolve. It is choosing not to respond the way you used to. It is declining opportunities that no longer align. It is setting boundaries where you once overextended. Each small act of release creates room for expansion. Rising is not about striving harder. It is about aligning deeper. When you clear space, clarity enters. When you loosen your grip, peace increases. When you surrender control, confidence grows because you are no longer fueled by fear of losing what was temporary. You begin to recognize that elevation is not about collecting more, but about carrying less. The higher you go, the lighter you must travel. Old wounds, outdated beliefs, and unnecessary attachments cannot survive in elevated places. Release refines you. It strengthens discernment. It sharpens focus. And as you let go with courage, you discover that what awaits you requires the freedom you were once afraid to claim. There comes a defining moment when you must choose between being understood and being obedient. Approval is comforting. It reassures you that you belong, that you are accepted, that you are safe within the expectations of others. But calling does not always align with comfort. Purpose will often ask you to walk paths that others cannot yet see. When you prioritize approval, you begin editing your convictions to fit the room. You soften your truth to avoid tension. You delay decisions because you fear disappointing people who have grown attached to who you used to be. Over time, the weight of maintaining everyone else's expectations becomes heavier than the fear of stepping out. Obedience requires courage because it demands trust beyond applause. It asks you to move when affirmation is absent. It challenges you to speak when silence would keep you popular. It invites you to act on conviction even when consensus is missing. And the deeper you step into alignment, the more you realize that not everyone assigned to your past is equipped for your future. Choosing obedience does not mean disrespecting people. It means recognizing that your ultimate responsibility is to the purpose placed within you. When you know you are being nudged toward change, delaying for the sake of approval creates inner conflict. You begin to feel divided, externally compliant, internally restless. That tension is a signal that alignment matters more than applause. Approval fades. Opinions shift. Crowds change. But obedience builds integrity. It anchors you in something stable when reactions fluctuate. It strengthens your discernment because you are listening for guidance rather than validation. You become less reactive to criticism and less dependent on praise. The path of obedience may narrow your circle, but it expands your capacity. It may cost temporary comfort, but it deepens long-term peace. When you stand firm in what you are called to do, you discover a confidence that does not require permission. You begin to move with clarity, not because everyone agrees, but because you are aligned with the direction placed on your heart. Every transformation begins with a decision, not a grand announcement, not a perfectly mapped strategy, just a simple, powerful yes. Your yes is the pivot. It is the invisible line between who you have been and who you are becoming. Long before circumstances shift, long before results appear, the turning point happens internally. You can sit at the edge of change for years, analyzing, questioning, waiting for guarantees. You can gather advice, seek confirmation, and rehearse possibilities. But nothing moves until you decide. Your yes activates movement. It signals readiness. It tells fear that it no longer has authority over your future. Saying yes does not mean you understand every detail. It means you trust the direction more than your doubt. It means you are willing to step forward even when clarity unfolds gradually. Many people miss their turning point because they expect certainty before commitment. Growth rarely works that way. Commitment creates clarity. Your yes may be quiet. It may happen in prayer, in reflection, in a moment when you finally admit you are ready for more. It might look like applying for the opportunity you once felt unqualified for. It might look like ending what no longer aligns. It might look like forgiving, healing, or beginning again. The action may seem small, but the agreement within you is monumental. The power of yes is that it aligns your will with your purpose. It breaks cycles of hesitation. It interrupts patterns of self-sabotage. Once you decide, your posture changes. You stop negotiating with fear. You stop shrinking to fit comfort. You begin walking with intention because your heart has already crossed the threshold. Turning points are not accidents. They are responses. They are born when preparation meets decision. The nudge has been present. The pressure has refined you. The release has made space. Obedience has strengthened your resolve. Now your yes becomes the bridge between potential and manifestation, between intention and action, between vision and reality. There are moments in life that look ordinary on the surface, but carry eternal significance beneath them. This is one of those moments. The whisper you felt, the discomfort you couldn't ignore, the pressure that shaped you, the release that stretched you, The obedience that tested you, all of it has been leading here. Not to confusion, not to chaos, but to clarity. You were never being pushed out without purpose. You were being pulled forward with intention. Every restless night, every internal wrestling, every closed door was aligning you with a higher dimension of who you are called to become. The holy nudge was never meant to disturb you. It was meant to awaken you. This is your reminder that turning points are not defined by external applause or dramatic announcements. They are defined by internal decisions, by the courage to listen, by the humility to release, by the faith to obey, by the strength to say yes when fear is still whispering no. You are not behind. You are not disqualified. You are not too late. You are standing at the intersection of preparation and possibility. And what happens next is not determined by your past, but by your response. The nudge is still speaking. The path is still opening. The invitation is still extended. This holy nudge is your turning point. And everything changes when you choose to move.